Hey folks, I wanted to take a moment to just show you how these jQuery plugins can help you professionally. Uh, Last summer and the fall, I was tasked to do several locators, specifically by a company called Valiant, a company called Bausch& Lomb, Walgreens, and one of the challenging parts of this project was that the number of Walgreens in this country are about 50,000. There's a ton of them. So I'm going to go ahead and give you an overview of this and how I was able to do it very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a distance of 40 miles, and you see all these. These are all Walgreens that participate in the Bausch & Lomb Access program. So I get data that gets sent up and updated every month, and I feed it into this interface. So you can, there's quite a bit of data here, so I can go ahead and do directions like this. So I've done a few of these, and there's also Valiant Access Program, so I'm just going to change this to Valiant. And same concept, same data. There's a few more that are around. So when this came down, and I'll just show you real quick how this works, but because I want to show you the plugin and how I used it. But if you look at, I'm basically loading the data from a PHP script in a MySQL database. But rather than confuse you, there are literally 50,000 of these things. So I can go ahead and click on this, and I can go ahead and zoom out. But they're all over the country. No, this would be within 40 miles. So you see they're numbered. And you can scroll down over here too, and you can see that it goes quite a ways. It's meant to be mobile friendly. So if I go ahead and do like this, we can see the scroll, and the user can click that and get directions for what they're doing. So regardless, my savior in this case was this guy, Born Helene. And he's got this plugin, and it uses jQuery it uses jQuery, of course, but it uses Google Maps. So when I download the zip, and I'm saying this because my job for this project was to control the data, and that was I didn't want to have to worry about front end. I just needed to feed the data in with the JSON feed that. And we haven't discussed JSON in this course, but it's JavaScript object notation. But let me show you an example. The beauty of this is that this is what this guy has given me. And he's got the JSON feed right here. And it has, this is more of the project stuff, but if we look at the distribution here, we can see a bunch of great examples and how he has his data. So let's say I wanted to go ahead and just do we'll do a cluster example. So let's go, and now this is Chipotle, but this has to be on a server to work, by the way, so it's not going to work like this. But if you go to his actual website, and I look up jQuery Store Locator, you will see that Born Blog has that. It's been around since 2012, which is great. So he's got this, and he's also got this plugin, which is a separate one, actually, I think. But I ended up going, yeah, this is the Google Maps version, but it's not as good as this one because this was more manageable. So basically, you try and you work with it, but when you go into the actual demos for this, you can see, they should have demos. Here are the demos right here. So I was able to take even his, and his is in Minnesota, I think it's 6.7, something like that. Click submit, and basically this is what comes up. So 55102 is a good example, 55102. But I found that because I had 50,000 stores, I even contacted the guy, and he got back to me. I said, what would you do if you had 50,000 stores? And he said to create a drop-down by miles so that you can only load not 50,000, but the ones that match. And we just saw in 92105, I had 40 examples. But this is a great example of what this guy offered, and it sort of worked out of the box, leaving me to only worry about how the data was going to be handled. Now, if we look at this and we look at his specific data, I'm going to show you an example of that too. Let me get, this is the distribution. This is his data, and the locations are right here. So he's got JavaScript object notation. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and run it in JSON lint so you can see it. So there's JSON lint, which is going to validate my JavaScript object notation. I can just go ahead and do this and click validate, and it should run clear, and it does. So basically he's got the same thing. So all my job was to replicate this with my MySQL database. So if you're in this web development program and you're thinking about LAMP stack, Linux, MySQL, PHP, and what you're learning, this should be the end result of what you're able to achieve with this. Because through the help of jQuery with this other developer and the fact that I was getting my updated PHP, my updated database code with all the 50,000 Walgreens restaurants, and then on top of that I got advice from him, because when I loaded 50,000 sites into his window, I mean the JSON here is only a few, right? It's got maybe 15, 30. Well, I was loading in 50, actually more like 250,000 lines of code, because it was like 5 lines per store. So the idea, and if they hadn't gotten back to me, I would have done the same thing, because I was starting to experiment with mileage. But what his help enabled me to do was I could geocode and do it with distance, maximum distance. So here's our stuff. So if I do what was it, 55102, and I do 30 miles, I get that. And we get how many here? There's our example. Now what's really cool with this plugin is when you click that, it's going to jump up and down, which is a beautiful thing. So that's an example of some, and they're great plugins, but that's one that was, when I saw it, it had great documentation. He was blogging about it. He had a GitHub that was professionally done and updated. One thing I noticed was that he had recently updated it. In fact, if you go here, you see a couple of the files have been updated just months ago. So he's still working on it, which is great. And I did this stuff last summer, and he's got all the documentation here, changelog. This guy is credible, and that's why I went with this plugin, because his data more closely matched what I needed to send out than any other plugin out there. So there is a good example of using jQuery to sort of bail my butt out so I can bang out a few of these apps to make our company money. Okay. Any questions on that, don't hesitate to email. I like this as a good example for you to think of what the prize is at the end of your associate's degree in WebD, or if you're going for the certificate. All right. Have a good week.